So the Qahtan are the Arabs of Yemen. And Adnan are the Arabs of, if you look at the peninsula, right, the Qahtanis are here, and then the Adnanis are here, and also the Lakhmites, the Bakris, the Ghassasina. These were all Arab tribes that were in the Sham and Iraq prior to Islam, right? And they were very powerful. And then the Eastern Arabs, the Hanifa and the Bani Tamim is from the Hanifa, and the Kinana, Bani Kinana. So the Arabian, the thing that we know about the Arabs is the Arabs are all united at some point by fathers. And this is really important. This is going to be important to the unification of the Muslims under the leadership of Quraysh, the Arabs at that time. And it's important also to continued bonds between the Arabs. And also, interestingly enough, the Jahili conflicts reemerge after Islam. There's a reemergence of Jahili conflict, which is also unfortunate but important to the whole overall story. Now, obviously the well of Zamzam is a sacred well, it's an honored well, and the Jurhamites were the people who Ismail marries from them, from the people of the descendants of Jurhum. And they become the caretakers of Mecca. All right? They become the caretakers of Mecca. Now, there's another really important thing going on the Arabian Peninsula, and that is this area here produces a substance known as luban, which we call frankincense. And that also can't be underestimated in terms of its influence. And also myrrh is another one that's produced here. Now, the peoples in this area, and also Iraq, Egypt, used great deals of frankincense. It was a sacred scent. They used it to purify their temples. They used it for funerals. They used it for ceremonies, weddings, these type things. Very important. And it becomes important also in Byzantine Christianity. Frankincense is still used to this day in the Greek Orthodox churches. They have these big incense, and the priest, they burn a lot of incense and completely inundate the church with the smell of frankincense. Now, this is important because it creates a commercial base for these Arabs. And so what happens is you have a trade route from here all the way to Sham that takes this perfume to the Shamis, Byzantines, and prior to that to other peoples. Now, along the route is Mecca. So they pass through Mecca, and they venerate the Kaaba. It's a place of veneration for the Arabs. So this is important also. Now, what happens is the Jurhumites start doing a lot of bad stuff, abusing pilgrims, doing other things. And so another tribe, which is Khuza'a, actually becomes the lords of Mecca. So, and one of the things that the Jurhumites did is, before they were kicked out of Mecca, was they buried the well of Zamzam. In other words, if we can't have it, nobody can have it, right? Common human thing to do. And so they buried the well of Zamzam, and then they left. And Khuza'a, which is a big tribe there, takes over. And they obviously don't know where the Zamzam is, and they don't really bother to dig it up. And so now, one of the things that happens is really significant. Khuza'a brings an idol. into Mecca for the first time. And this is the beginning of idolatry. This is like probably like 300 Christian era. They bring, no, this is before that, I'm sorry. The Khuza'a is going to be before that. They bring an idol from Palestine, which is known as Hubal. And this becomes the chief idol of Mecca. And the Prophet actually cursed the man that brought that idol. He asked, because he saw them idol worshipping in Sham, and he thought, oh, we should do this. And so he brought that idol. Now, as time goes on, more and more idols are added to the pantheon of idols in Mecca, and tribes begin to bring their idols there and place them there, and it becomes a reason for the tribes to come and actually visit Mecca. So the Meccans actually, they don't have a problem with that, because it's like bringing more, bring your idols, because it's going to bring their tribal members, and the way they're looking at it is it means money for them. And so they actually encouraged this to happen. Now, if you look at this here, Quraysh. If you don't have the sheet, I've got a few more left. One of the chiefs of Khuza'a was named Hulayl. And Hulayl is the chief of Mecca. And what happens is he has a son whose name is Qusay. And Qusay, it's not his son, but he marries the daughter of Hulayl. And Hulayl actually prefers Qusay to his own children. And this is important because what he does is he places Qusay as the caretaker of the Kaaba. And this is the move from the Bani Khuza'a to Bani Quraysh. Now, if you look on the sheet here, Qusay is next to Zuhra, down here. Qusay is the son of Kilab, the son of Murrah, the son of Ka'ab, the son of Lu'ay, the son of Ghalib, who's the son of Fihr, who's also known as Quraysh. Now, the difference in the Quran, Allah says He created peoples as shu'ub and qaba'il. In Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah says, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِل. We made you nations or peoples and tribes. The word for shu'ub or peoples comes from a root word, shi'ba or sha'ab, which is a branch. Shu'ba is a branch. Now, qabila is the other word that Allah uses. And this divides people into two types. You're either from a sha'ab or you're from a qabila. And there's differences about qabila. Some say it's only for the Arabs, and everybody else is shu'ub. And some say that it's not. And there's actually a third category, which is the asbab. And these are Bani Israel, who are obviously a unique and special people on the planet. They have a very distinct historical role in the obvious overall picture. One, because they were given more prophets than anybody else. but two, because they will have an ongoing impact and influence on humanity at large, despite the fact they're an incredibly small number of people in relation to the total population. So they're important, and you can't underestimate their importance in world history. So, and that is, in a sense, why they are distinct. They're asbab. They're different from other people. They're not like other people. Now, some say the qabila, though, which the plural is qaba'il, and qabila, the idea is acceptance. It's related to this qabila, yaqbalu, acceptance. Your qabila or your qabil is your group. It's those you accept, which is not the same as a sha'b. Because a sha'b is a loosely affiliated group of people. Usually language is what brings them together. And they generally don't have a common ancestor. They don't know. Like, for instance, if you ask an American, what's your background? Most Americans have a whole diverse background, right? And some don't have a clue, right, to where they're from. Either because they don't really keep... The truth is, a lot of them don't want to know where they're from. Because a lot of people that came to this country were actually, criminals and people that were in massive debt and came here for those reasons. They were actually fleeing Europe. That's not all of them, but there were quite a few Americans like that. Georgia was a debtor, a prison basically. It was where they were sent to work off debts and things like that. And Australia has a similar problem. And then you also have a lot of people now that came obviously from different places. I don't want to go into the history of America, but the point is that most Americans don't know where they're from, and that's why they're a sha'b. They're not a qabila. Now, it's very important, and if you've lived, and I had the good fortune of living with a tribe, it's very different. A tribe is an extended family. It's a big family, and they view things very differently from a people. In other words, if you have a tribal member, you take care of them, even if they're from a distant branch. There's a blood bond that peoples have a hard time relating to. And this is important because the Quraysh are all related to one father who's Fihr. And Fihr's nickname was Quraysh. And the root word of Quraysh is qarasha. And qarasha means to bite. Now, who knows how he got that nickname? People get funny nicknames when they're little children. He might have bitten, a goat and not let go or something, and they called him Quraysh. Allahu alam, I don't know. But it was a name that he was given, and he becomes known as Quraysh. Qirsh is a shark, right? Obviously because it's very powerful bite. And Quraysh might be a diminutive little shark, right? Allahu alam. But the point is that was his name. Now, he has two sons that are known, Al-Harith, and that becomes the clan of Abu Ubaidah, and Ghalib. And Ghalib is the important one because from him comes Lu'ay, and then Lu'ay has two sons, and the clan of Suhail comes from one of them, which is a tribe, very well-known Arab tribe. And there's still, I think, aren't there Suhailis in Arabia now? There's still Suhailis, aren't they? Huh? Yeah. So there's still Suhailis that are known on the Arabian Peninsula. And so they're distant relatives to the Prophet ﷺ by Lu'ay. Lu'ay's son Ka'b has three sons. Murrah, which is the important one for us. Adi, the clan of Umar. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, no. I think it's an Umari, but I'm not sure if it shouldn't be ibn al-Khattab. It might be, though. I think it is, actually. I think Umar's from there. Husays, and then Amr. And from there comes, it is the clan of Umar. He's from Adi. One of his fathers is named Adi. From there, Saham, the clan of Amr ibn al-As, is a Sahmi. And then the clan of Uthman ibn Mad'um, another very important Sahabi, comes from Amr. Now Murrah has 3 sons. All are very important. Kilab, the most important. Taym, and Abu Bakr is known as Abu Bakr al-Taymi. Taymi is one of the tribes, or the branches. This is called a fakhr, which means literally in Arabic like a thigh. Right? It's a branch of a tribe. So you have a qabila, and then you have butun. You have branches from that qabila. Right? So these people are all related to the Prophet ﷺ. And that's what's important to know. The Quraysh are a tribe. And then there's branches. And the Prophet's particular branch is Bani Hashim. All right? So the Taymis, which is Abu Bakr, is from there, and Talha. And then Yaqadha, which is the Makhzum, a very powerful tribe. Right? Bani Makhzum. And Khalid ibn al-Walid is from them. And also Walid ibn al-Mughira al-Makhzumi. He's a very important figure because he's probably the most prominent of the Qurayshis at the time of the Prophet ﷺ's revelation. He's definitely one of the most important. Now, from Kilab comes Qusay and Zuhra. And Zuhra, the clan of the Prophet's mother, Amina, is from Zuhra. And his cousin is Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas and Abdurrahman ibn Auf. So you can see these are major Sahabis who are related to the Prophet. So there's a blood bond here as well as a spiritual bond, which is important. And then Qusay has different sons. He has Abduddar is his first son, which Mus'ab ibn Umair is from this group. And then Abdul Manaf and Abdul Uzza. Now, from Abdul Uzza is Khadija, Waraqa bin Nawfal, and Zubair ibn al-Awwam. Again, very important people. Khadija is the daughter of Asad. And then, now, what's important here, and he brings this out in this book, is that these 2 sons, Abdul Dar is the first son, and Abdul Manaf. Qusay preferred Abdul Dar. He was the firstborn, although he was not from these sons, he was not the most capable. Abdul Manaf was the more capable one. Out of filial piety, Abdul Manaf does not go against his father's wishes because his father places in Abdul Dar's hand the Kaaba, the taking care of the pilgrims, all of these things, because this was Qusay's responsibility. And what happens is that Abdul Manaf has a son here. He's got several. Abdul Shams, which is where Uthman ibn Affan comes from, and Abu Sufyan bin Harb. Very important group of people here. Right? This is a really important group of people. This is where we get Bani Umayyah. Right? And they're going to come up again and again in not only the history of the Prophet ﷺ's mission, but also after, and some old rivalries between Bani Umayyah and Bani Hashim reemerge. And it's the Umayyads who will, less so probably than the Abbasids, but they will persecute the family of the Prophet ﷺ, unfortunately. Now, the other son is Hashim, and Al-Muttalib, and Nawfal. Now, from what happens here is that Hashim, the sons of Zuhra and Taym actually support Hashim. They wanted Hashim, they felt that it should be transferred to the clan of Bani Hashim, taking care of the Kaaba, and not the clan of Abd-Dar. And then other groups, particularly the Makhzumites, which again is important, in relation to how they respond to the Prophet ﷺ, because these are old rivalries that reemerge later. What happens is that Bani Hashim, that Hashim is supported by Zuhra and Taym. And this is also important because if you notice, Abu Bakr is the closest person to the Prophet before Islam, right? And he's a Taymi, you see, and he marries Abdullah, marries a Zuhri. You see, so there's links here related to affiliations and support. Now, one group, they all go to the Kaaba and they put their hands in the Mu'attarin, they put their hands in the perfume and they swear allegiance to each other. Right? This is and then also the Makhzum, Abdul Dar's group, swear allegiance to him, and they're the Confederates. They make this hilf between them. Now, because violence is restricted in the sanctuary and around Mecca, right? They can't fight this thing out. So there's a compromise suggested, and that is let Abdul Manaf have the rights of levying the tax and providing pilgrims with food and drink, whereas Abdul Dar should retain the keys of the Kaaba. They're the ones that are going to open the Kaaba. They used to clean it out, perfume it, and let dignitaries enter into it. And so this is how they want to compromise. And this is also important because this is the way tribes tend to try to deal with things. They didn't want to, they're family, they don't want to kill each other. Right? I mean, they're blood-bonded people. They don't want to kill each other, so there's compromises. And this is the way tribes tend to work. Now, what Hashim is the one who establishes the Rahla of Shita'i wa Sayf. The Ilafi Quraysh, Ilafihim Rahlat Shita'i wa Sayf. They have two journeys. They go, in the summertime, they go to Sham. In the wintertime, they go to the Yemen, and to get away from the heat of Mecca. So they have these two journeys. Now Hashim begins to travel with commerce, because the Qurayshis were tujar, they were merchants. He begins to travel, and on his ways, he stops in Yathrib. This is part of his stopover in Yathrib. And while he's in Yathrib, right, these are Awlad Qayla, a woman that unites them, and there were two dominant tribes, the Aus and the Khazraj. Now, one of the most influential women that Ibn Hisham points out was Salma, the daughter of Amr, from the clan of Najjar. Again, very important people, Bani Najjar. They're going to show up later. Bani Najjar are the people that greet the Prophet ﷺ when he comes into Medina. All right? So you can see the divine work here, and this is the way we view it. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this is the divine work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These people are going to be related to the Prophet ﷺ through blood. Right? The Aus wal Khazraj. I mean, it's an amazing event. Now, Salma was a very strong woman. And she agrees to marry Hashim, but she agrees with, she puts stipulations down, which was very common. And Islam actually continued that tradition of allowing women to stipulate things when they get married. And she gives him a son, right? And this son they name Shayba. And Shayba is, the Arabs often use names that have to do like gray hair, something like that, hoping that they'll get old, right? And so Shayba there is Salman's son, right? Now, if you look here, Hashim, his son here is called Abdul Muttalib. Well, that's Shayba. And as the story goes, Abdul Manaf has other sons, and one of them is Al-Muttalib, who's another very important person. Now Hashim dies on the way, he's on a journey, and he actually gets very sick, and he dies. All right? Now, what happens is, this man Muttalib, or Shayba, is becoming well known in Medina for being an extraordinary, he was extremely handsome, he was extremely eloquent, he had a lot of really extraordinary qualities, which according to the Arab are leadership qualities. Now, what happens is, Al-Muttalib he's the important man in Mecca, but he needs somebody to take over his place because they want to maintain the authority in Bani Hashim. And when he hears about this son, he goes and he meets Salma, and he sees the son, and he's struck by this man. He's a really extraordinary youth, and he asks Salma to take him back to Mecca, and she refuses. Mother, she wants her son with her. He convinces her, saying, he has a sha'n. Again, divine work here, because Abdul Muttalib has to come to Mecca in order to have. He discovers the Zamzam. He does all of these things. So she comes. She finally agrees, recognizing the potential here of her own son to be the ruler of Mecca, which even to the Yathribi Arabs was a great place of distinction. So it's not simply. That she wants him to be a leader or something. No, the leader of Quraysh is going to be the most influential man in Arabia. Right? So she recognizes the importance of that. Now, when he comes, Shayba is coming into Mecca, and he had him on the back of his camel. When the people saw him, they saw this young youth. They didn't know who he was, so they said, "Oh, look at the new servant of Muttalib." They call him Abdul Muttalib. And this becomes his name. He's known as Abdul Muttalib, even though his original name was Shayba. Now, this man is truly an extraordinary man. And what happens is he grows up to be a major influence in Mecca and in the tribe of Quraysh. But an event happens that's very significant. And he has only one son at this time, whose name is Al-Harith. And he used to spend his nights, he would sleep at the Hijr. And he really enjoyed sleeping there. And one night, he has a dream there. And the dream is a very strange dream in which a speaker tells him, dig Zamzam. He says, what is Zamzam? Now remember, this is centuries later. Right? This is centuries later. The story of Hajar, they know this is the sanctuary of Ibrahim, but they really don't know a whole lot anymore about what happened. He's told to dig Zamzam, and there's, they know about a well. There was a well there. And he says, what is Zamzam? And then he's told to dig this well, and you won't regret it. It's your inheritance. Right? It's your inheritance. And dry she never will, nor fail to water all the pilgrims. So then he was told to look where there's blood, dung, ants' nest, and pecking ravens. And then he was told to pray for this water, right, to give the pilgrims. Now, siqayat al-hajj, which is the giving water to the pilgrims, was a responsibility of Bani Hashim. They had to give water to the Hujjaj. It's been taken over by Al-Saud, right? They now provide water for the Hujjaj. And that's why you have these big trucks that pass out water. It's an ancient tradition, siqaya of the Hajj, because obviously in Mecca is an extremely hot place. You need water. So it was very important. Now, what happens is he has this dream that's repeated, and finally he goes out one day and he finds the place, and it's a place where they sacrifice animals during the pilgrim. And he begins to dig. He only has one son, Al-Harith. And the Quraysh start coming, hey, what are you doing? And he says, I'm digging. They say, no, this is a sacred place. You can't just dig here. And he just says, leave me alone. And he tells Harith to stand there. Right? And then the other Arabs start coming. They start bringing their sons. And it's getting heated. Right? But Abdul Muttalib just keeps digging.